तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्तिः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ जयन्ती मङ्गलकाली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवदात्री स्वाहा स्वादा नमोस्तुते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Sairam Lane, Sairam from Malaysia.
Sairam Sharma, Sairam to all from New Thailand. Welcome to our listeners and our visitors. And again, we lovingly thank Bhagwan for this opportunity to relate yet another story of his wisdom and his glory. The title of our talk tonight is You Cannot Make Tea at Your Desk. I joined Radio Sai as a volunteer shortly after it was set up because I knew the director and he was keen for me to start. He knew that I could do artwork, I could tell stories, write stories and articles, and I was quite good at doing all kinds of little things. I was very happy to run errands, pick up papers, deliver papers, take photos, whatever they asked me to do. I'd even mop the floor. Clean anything they wanted. I was so happy to be working in those hallowed rooms. I felt that all the boys were angelic beings and that you could really feel Swami's presence very, very strongly at Radio Sai and in the building. In those days, it was in a little building called the EHV building. It had formerly been the EHV building. It was a somewhat, I think, six-sided building with a tiny upstairs with a little staircase, concrete steps that led up to an attic storage room. Of course, now it has been expanded and many additions have been made. But in those days, the rooms were quite small, but it was enough to have a little desk. I was allowed a little desk space, and I was out near the back where the photocopier is. And of course, the main feature of Radio Sai was the sound engineering room and the recording studio where Swami's throne was, where his statue was there that he had installed himself of Lord Krishna. And this is where all the great bhajan singers and musicians were coming to record. And often there would be jam sessions late at night. After the boys had finished work, the musicians would book the studio. So it could be a very exciting place to volunteer. And I was not the only lady there. There was the broadcasting director. She was there. And we were always treated with so much kindness and respect. I have such happy memories of being in those hallowed rooms. Now, I had taken the opportunity to take a kettle in an electric kettle because it is my habit to drink tea all day long when I'm working. I love tea, I love herbal tea, I love black tea, I love milk tea. I'm not a coffee drinker. And I had my cup there and some bags of tea, different kinds of tea. And because I couldn't always get away to go for meals, I would sometimes have a few snacks there. Or the boys would go out and sometimes bring in snacks and share them around because there were many times we were too busy to even go eat, to be honest. Now, outside there was a little kiosk where you could get coffee and you could get Indian tea, but all of us were pretty much on a budget. And so pretty soon some of the boys were asking if they could come and have a cup of tea using my electric jug. And of course I said, of course you can, and here's some tea. And pretty soon I had brought in some plastic containers filled with some little snacks, and I had them hidden under my desk. And pretty soon Lynn was the sort of snack station and tea walla for the studio. And then one day the director came to hear about my little tea service, and he called me to his office, and he said, Lynn, I'm sorry, you cannot make tea at your desk. And I said, oh, then I will have to bring my jug in here and make my tea in your office. And he said, oh, no, we can't have that either. I was a bit cheeky, but I loved that director very, very much. So those of you who are familiar with Radio Sai will probably know who I'm talking about. He was very, very close to Swami, one of the most beautiful men I have ever known. But he was very strict. And I said, why can't I? I'm not doing any harm. He said, no, from now on, you will have to take the kettle home with you, and you can bring it in with you in the morning, but don't give tea to everybody else. And I was arguing a little bit with him. I said, I have to have a good reason. There's no good reason for this. He said, when the studio was first built, we had, the recording studio has to be kept completely clean and free of dust and free of any kind of mess. And he said one night, the boys decided to have a party in the studio. They brought in food and drink, and next morning we came in and there was crumbs all over the floor, and there was also splashes of tea and drinks and all this. The boys had not cleaned up. I was very upset, and I decided I will go to Swami and complain. And he said, I went in to see Swami, and he said, Swami, the boys are making a big mess in the studio. What to do? I am very cross with them. And he said, Swami said, what? He said, what are you talking about? These boys are my children. They do not know any better. They are children. It is your responsibility to take care. So Swami was not having a complaint. And in fact, I had learned actually earlier, you never go to Swami with a complaint, because he will turn it right around on you and he will say something like that. He won't have any kind of criticism of anybody. He will always say, this is my child. It is your responsibility how you must see that person as the divine. However, so for then on, I just took my jug and made the tea there, and the boys were laughing. And I said, what are you all laughing about? And they said, come in here, Len. And they took me into the sound studio. There are great big velvet curtains. And I would like to add that these boys that took me in there, they are not there anymore. But they took me into the studio and they pulled back the velvet curtains. And there was a whole line of about 5 jugs. They were boiling noodles in them. They were making tea. They were making coffee. And I burst out laughing. I thought of Swami's words, they are children, and they had found a way around this rule that not to have drinks or food in the studio. So what to do? I laughed. It was so amusing. But this is something that has always stayed with me. And I remember once I went back to the director and I decided to butter him up a little bit because I didn't want him to be cross with me. And I knew that he was very busy. He was working on a new book. He was hunched over his computer. And I had gone out into the village and I had bought a lot of chocolates that looked like they were wrapped up to look like little gold ingots. They were wrapped in gold paper and they looked exactly like a little gold ingot. And so I thought, I will fool him. He will think I have brought in a big donation. And I bought a lot of these chocolates and I walked into his office and threw all these chocolates on his desk. He was working on his computer and he suddenly swung around and his eyes brightened when he saw all these gold ingots. He must have thought I had robbed Fort Knox or something. But then when he came over, he saw they were just chocolates. And so I began talking to him about the whole business with the teapots and the tea and all that. And he began inexplicably stacking the ingots on top of each other, making little chocolate towers. And I said to him, what are you doing? I'm trying to talk to you about something. And he said, cheekily, I am making the best use of my time while I listen to you, Len. Oh my God, he cracked me up. He was so quick, so sharp. And lovingly, I think of him with so much love. He was so much Swami's boy himself. And I would like to end this chapter of my life with wishing you all a very nice cup of tea. And the next time you have it, please think of this story. And Swami's reply, you are all my children. Om Shri Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. तस्मात् कारुण्य भावेन रक्ष रक्ष साईश्वर हरि ओम तत्सत् श्री साईश्वरार्पणमस्तु ओम शांति शांति शांति।